Hey, hey everyone. It's good to be back. So today's webinar is going to be on 3D printers. So specifically, we'll start by going over what a 3D printer is, and then some use cases and the different types of 3D printers there are. And as we'll also go over where you can get them and where you can design the things that you can 3D print. So 3D printing is when you build something up layer by layer out of some molten material, usually like plastic, and you design it in something called CAD, which is a broad set of apps where you can build basically the 3D model for what you're trying to print. And so like you can see in this image in the bottom left, you'll have the printer itself, which has a spool of material, and then it has a little nozzle, and the nozzle will move back and forth. And if this is plastic, it'll basically spread molten plastic onto the base here, and slowly it'll build it up layer by layer until you get a full model, which is something like this orange dragon here. So it takes a while, depending on the type of printer and how big the thing you're printing is. It can take a few hours. So the first 3D printer came as an idea in sci-fi, and it only really started to really exist in the 80s. So traditionally they used polymers, so plastic, but recently they've also been able to adapt them for other things like metals and ceramics. And they've been getting cheaper over the years. So you can get pretty decent printers for relatively little money. And it's a great way to quickly make things. And it's also very commonly used in a lot of different industries. So you can make a lot of different complicated things that might not be so easy to buy or make through more traditional methods like with molds. And because you don't need a ton of industrial specialized equipment, the only real upfront cost is the printer and then some material. After that, it's pretty cheap. And you can also very quickly try different things to see, does this work? What doesn't work? And you can quickly prototype different things. So why might you want to use a 3D printer? Well, it's a great way to DIY different things, and it's much faster than having to go and get something made with a machine. And you can also have just a bunch of spare parts lying around. So if something ever breaks, you can quickly pop in a 3D printed replacement. And if you're into making movies or things like that, you can make really believable props with them. So a lot of different places will sell 3D printers, and they vary in cost. So they can be as cheap as $300 for something fairly simple. And obviously, the more complicated it gets, the more expensive it gets. So if you do buy a 3D printer, consider if you're using it just a couple times, or if you're going to be using it a lot, and what size of things you're going to be making, and what material you want to make those things out of. So this is what's considered a fairly entry-level 3D printer. It's the FlashForge Adventurer 3. So it comes in at around $700, and it's fairly compact, like you can see in this picture. And the entire printing part is enclosed, and there's this nice touch-based interface. This one is a little bit more expensive, and it's much more like you might have seen a 3D printer in a video. And again, it has touchscreen interface. A lot of libraries also have 3D printers that you can use. So for example, if you're in Toronto or nearby, they have 8 different locations with 3D printers, and you can book a time for about 3 hours if you want to just test it out and see what it's like. And it costs 10 cents per gram of the printing material that you're doing. And Toronto Public Library also has free courses if you're not really sure how to use it. and you want to just get an introduction to it. So most printers will come with apps, and there's also, you have to design the thing you're printing on a computer before you print it, just like you would type out a document in Microsoft Word or Google Docs before you send it to your printer to get it printed. So some fun facts about 3D printing. In the US, most hearing aids are made with 3D printing, and fashion designers are trying it out to make clothes like shoes and dresses. NASA is trying to make 3D printed food so that astronauts can have a lot of different food without having to constantly ship it up to the space station. And it's also been used to make things like prosthetics. And during COVID-19, the pandemic, a lot of places were making things like masks and face shields, and they were trying to 3D print them to make manufacturing faster. So if you want to learn more, there's a few links in this presentation, which will go out in an email after the session, so you can check them out.